In the fall of 2019, a group of friends in the independent film community got together to make a horror film.
Gut-wrenching.
With less than $1,000, and within less than a month, they grabbed a camera and ran around their neighborhood in the middle of the night and made history.
Like, what was in the scene? Nobody knows. It was the Illuminati.
Yeah, the wizard people.
Yeah, they can kill you and make it look like a heart attack easily.
Get out of here. You guys are high.
So, it's still true.
I doubt it. Show me the facts.
Hit the jewel and blow it in his face. Here's your facts.
There's your facts.
That's good.
That's good. Facts, man.
A story about how far someone can be pushed until they hit their breaking point.
Oh my god.
And push back.
There's a man here, and I think he's hurt.
Wait a minute. This made it to Amazon Prime? Hold up. Let's go back and see how this was possible. In order to understand how this actually happened, first let's meet the people who pulled it off.
Hi, I'm Robin Hunt, and I am the producer and cinematographer of Run.
Hi, my name is Amanda Troisi, and I play Gail.
I'm Nick Guzman, also known as New York Nick, and I play Ben.
Hi, I'm Mike. I played Mike.
Hi, I'm Allan Sconza, and I wrote, directed, edited, and wrote the music for Run. Bitch.
Now let's sit back and relax as we travel backwards in time to learn how this whole thing got started.
Okay, let's see. Had a small part in Brewster's Millions with Richard Pryor and John Candy. Also had a small part in a film called Streetwalking, which starred Melissa Leo, who's now an Oscar-winning performer. On top of that, I spent 3 years as a manager with ECW Wrestling, and producer and manager for USWF Wrestling out of Elmira, New York, as well as finally getting into directing, where I directed a short film called The Mirror, and have been involved with numerous other films doing special effects, directing, producing, and cinematography.
Let us go back even further now and learn Allan's origin story.
I wanted to be a filmmaker at such a young age. When I was growing up, I was always playing with action figures. My mother worked for a company where she would always bring home like cardboard boxes and stuff, and I remember I would make like play sets and create my own worlds with my own characters and stuff. And you know, I always had like a million ideas I needed to do. So when I was in my early 20s, a friend of mine had opened up a video game store called We've Got Freaking Video Games, and I worked there. And one of the kids who came in, his father would come in all the time. That was Robin.
It was a place where kids would go to play video games, Magic cards, Magic the Gathering. Allan actually worked there, and he played, you know, a lot of the games with the kids. And my son, who happened to be into Magic cards, big Magic card player, loved video games, used to go there, and he was younger, so I'd bring him there and pick him up. And a lot of times, you know, he wasn't finished, you know, playing, so I'd be standing around, so Allan and I would get to talking. And I think the first subject we talked about was movies, 80s horror films. And I was impressed because here was, you know, he was a kid himself, and he had like an almost encyclopedic knowledge of 80s horror films, and you know, which was something to me because I'd actually seen them at the movies. I'm old enough to, and you know, I couldn't remember things he was saying.
In my house growing up, there was no, you know, restriction for movies. Like, we weren't allowed to watch things with nudity, but everything else was fine. Like, cursing, blood, gore, like, it all went. Like, I used to watch slasher films when I was in, like, you know, elementary school. Like, when I was in 4th grade, I was Freddy Krueger for Halloween. It was strange because none of the other kids my age were really allowed to watch these films. I might have, like, 1 or 2 friends.
So from there, you know, we would start like talking about, you know, wrestling. He found out I'd been involved in that.
You know, and he mentioned that he worked in ECW, and I used to love ECW. And he said, you know, he used to manage Sabu, like my favorite wrestler. So that was kind of crazy.
And, you know, he had been a big fan of that. And then slowly over the time, when the days came, we started talking about, you know, kind of what we'd like to see in horror films. And we began to find we were kind of, how should I say, like-minded in what we liked. And we started imagining, you know, what we would do if we were making a film. And we started throwing out ideas and things.
This is it. The moment of conception, of gestation. This is where it all began.
Well, you know, at the time, we were discussing ideas and projects of what we wanted to do. Now, me being a kid going from the 70s and 80s going back to that, you know, there were a lot of people that were making, you know, indie horror films that were like low budget and whatnot. But here's the thing. It costs a lot to make even with today's equipment, it costs an awful lot to make a feature film, and especially if you're here on the East Coast, you know, with the unions and everything, it can become really hairy. So I was thinking, you know, Allan and I love, you know, making films, and I'm sure, you know, just through people that we've met, that are other people who are like filmmakers and, you know, like doing that sort of thing too. So my idea was, and I had seen this done before, why not make an anthology film with, say, like, with 4 different directors, 4 individual, you know, short horror film stories, and put them together in one DVD.
So at the time, Robin asked me if I'd like to be on the DVD. I said sure. Even though I was working on other projects, one of them happened to be one of my passion projects called The Have-Nots. We were filming that. We got like 3/4 of the way through, and some money problems happened with one of the actors, and they quit. And that was devastating. Like, to get that far into a project and then have to can it. I definitely want to do it. And at the time, I was so like heartbroken over the have-nots. So I promised myself I'd get this film done, no matter what.
I had brought the idea to Allan about doing that. He really seemed to like the idea, but Allan, who's like an excellent writer, and he basically writes very detailed, and, so his things a lot of times are long and detailed, and that's kind of where he came from. So he felt, a little intimidated by the idea of doing a short film, writing a short script.
Now, I personally don't favor writing short films. I like to stick to the 3-act structure, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, all the different parts of the character development. Like, I've always been doing that for years. Like, there's so many different beats I like to hit with all of the parts.
But, one thing about Allan, though, he does like a challenge. So he said he would, give it some thought and, put something together and see what I thought.
And because I knew we were going to film something soon. So first I had to come up with an idea. And I kept having this reoccurring nightmare I was just being chased by a werewolf. And, like, no matter what in the dream, the damn thing would keep chasing me. And I could never get away from it. And so I thought maybe this could work. Maybe I'll do a werewolf movie.
He said he had an idea for, like, a werewolf movie. And I thought, a werewolf movie sounds good, but, had a little bit of a trepidation because, unlike vampires or zombies, werewolf movies with transformations and makeup and everything, that can bring a budget pretty high. But, I want to see what he's got.
I remember sitting down to write it. I'm like, all right, so how should this start? Like, again, it's like a short film. Like, I'm not sure what I want to do with it. I remember I was kind of stuck with, how am I going to do this? And I was watching Neil Gaiman's masterclass at the time. And he, it was just like kismet. Like, on the TV, he says, the trick to writing a short story is it's just the third act. So I'm like, all right, that's like perfect, because the third act, if you follow the principles of the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, the third act starts with the magic flight, and it's supposed to be a fast scene. The beginning of Act 3 is always really fast. So I was like, what if we just make the whole film like one big chase scene?
And so he sent me the script for a run. And I was, taken back. He had, and I guess I should have known this, but, with his mind being back in 80s horror films and low-budget horror, he wrote a script with a werewolf that basically didn't need a lot of super special effects like changes and transformations, but instead used suspense and put in what you didn't see to give you the scares. And, really, I thought it was brilliant, and I fell in love with the script right away. So I said, well, we've got equipment, we've got a great script, let's do it.
So Robin seemed to really like the script. Since we were filming this guerrilla style, I knew when I was casting, I had to put a cast together that not only, can really do the parts and were really good actors, but also it had to be a little crazy for what we were going to do. We were going to be like a tight group, of just going places we weren't allowed. And we'd drive to places, hop out of the car, throw on the werewolf mask, run around, fake blood, screaming it was going to get pretty crazy.
To start out with, Allan has a very, how should I put it? Allan has a very, wide circle of friends with a lot of different interests, but everything going kind of the same way. And, a lot of them had known Allan for years and, had been involved with things that he's done. So any of them would be enthusiastic about working with any project with him. In turn, Allan knew these people and knew their strengths, and I think, I don't know, you'd have to ask him this, but I think in his mind, for certain of the roles in the movies, like, Mike Keaton's role and Nick, I don't know whether it was conscious or unconscious, but I definitely think he had them in mind already anyway.
Casting Ben, I knew this character was going to have to be someone who was just thrown into a very unusual situation, and they end up having to, lead the group. And I had worked with an actor named Nick Guzman on the set of Sodomaniac, and he was great, and he's a vet and everything. Like, he was perfect. He was perfect for the role. I had to cast him.
So I met Allan a few years back. We were a common friend of ours. They took up our common friends with DIY Productions. They had gave us a call, and they were making a movie called Sodomaniac. Still hard explaining that one to a lot of the older ladies in my family. But they made this little movie called Sodomaniac, and over the course of 2 years, due to just people's schedules and timing, we were filming. A lot of this Sodomaniac was ended up being filmed in my house. I had to throw 4 very large ragers, is what I called them in my 20s. I had to throw about several large parties just so we can get all the correct scenes in there. And during that time, I met Allan, and during our downtime during the movie, or when I was dead, I got to talk to a lot of my other colleagues on there, and that's when me and Allan got to get close. And, and then one day I was online, and Allan hit me up, and Allan said that he had wrote this movie, and he had a script for a film called Run. And he said, I think I have a role in this that's going to be perfect for you. So, that's the early roots to Run.
Casting Mike. When I wrote this script, Mike was actually in my head for the character as I wrote it. So, it's basically him, and because every horror movie, like the 80s horror movies or 90s horror movies, there's always one character who knows what's going on. Like, the main character might start to think there's something going on, but there's always he's always got that one friend who he knows what monster it is. That your neighbor's a vampire, or your cousin's a ghost.
You look like a goddamn werewolf.
Or whatever, And so, it's I knew, the character who's going to call out that it's a werewolf it would have to be Mike. Mike wasn't an actor, though. He never acted in anything before. So who knows what he was going to say? I mean, I knew he could do it. Because, when you, just hanging with somebody and you're fooling around, it's you get to know, their mannerisms and all their little nuances and stuff. And it's I knew Mike can do what the script called for. Thankfully, he had the courage to say yes and try out, and he was perfect.
Quite honestly, I was surprised. Me acting? Never saw that happen in a day in my life. So, as far as acting goes, I've actually never acted in anything before this. Outside of silly school stuff, but who hasn't done that, right? It was strange. But after a while, it felt kind of natural, if that makes any sense. It seemed hey, this is plausible. Maybe this could be a thing.
I've been working on a movie called The Mirror, and there was the role of a drug-addicted mom, and I had another actress in the part. The actress wasn't bad, but she was just, too nice to be believable as a drug-addicted mom, and I had to find somebody else. So I had actually called a friend of mine, Andrew, and I had asked him if he knew anybody. And he said he had just worked with with an actress. Her name was Amanda Troisi. And he said she was, very good and would probably be, willing to do it. Do you want to take a look at her? And I'm like, you know what, Andrew, I got to get this done. We've got to, I trust you. Send her over.
I have always wanted to be an actress. So once I had the opportunity, I jumped right into a ton of short films, independent films. I created my own films as well as wrote different screenplays and directed and helped produce other films.
So, we were there. We had like a makeup crew ready, and Amanda walks in the door. And here I see this beautiful girl comes walking in the door, and, my heart just about dropped because I'm thinking, oh my God, a diva. He sent me a diva. She's supposed to be a drug-addicted mom, and he sends me a diva.
I didn't know anybody on set. And I came that day. I was supposed to be completely undone, monstrous looking, I played a mother that was abusing drugs and alcohol, and she was very stressed out. So I remember when I arrived, Robin's initial thoughts towards me was, oh my gosh, this girl's a diva. She's going to come in here and command and expect and so on and so forth. And I just remember coming in and being super, collaborative, a team player. I was just ready to get what shots we needed to do. And we had a pretty big scene that day where I actually shoot myself in the head. Yeah.
At the end, there's a scene where she commits suicide. And if you just see that scene, the death scene, the way her eyes roll up in her head as she blows her brains out and falls to the floor. I mean, Allan even helped with the effect on that, with the hairdryer making her hair go up as the bullet goes through. It was just amazing, and she made the scene. So by this point, Allan and I we were heavily into Run, because this was just a reshoot, and we were already going with it, and we were still looking for a leading lady.
I remember there was an extra who auditioned for the Have-Nots who I thought would be great for the lead.
He was talking to a young woman who was probably very good and looked right, but she was Screen Actors Guild, which, could cause us a lot of financial problems.
But, but her being in SAG and us having zero budget kind of raised a lot of questions. And, I wasn't too knowledgeable at what can happen. I just knew it was making some people uncomfortable. So we had to go with somebody else.
Now, I had mentioned the role to Amanda, and she was really interested.
And I'm like, Allan's film. Excuse me, what is Allan's film? I need to know this. So he kind of briefly told me it's a werewolf film, it's horror, it has this 80s feel. Why don't you, I'm going to get Allan to talk to you.
At the time, there was an actress creating a little buzz for herself in the independent film community, Amanda Troisi. I remember Robin had just recently worked with her, and he was very enthusiastic about having her play the lead. And
Allan, you got to give her a chance. You gotta let her read. Please, let her read. Just check it out. You won't believe it. Just see it.
So Allan at first was like, yeah, he didn't seem too interested, but I badgered him. I badgered Robin. I was like, please give me a chance. I want to do this.
So, I guess I got on his nerves so much. So I'm like, yeah, okay.
And before you know it, Allan gave me the opportunity to audition for the role. And I was like, well, he saw how good I worked. Why do I need to audition? But I did the audition, and I put, my all into the scene that I just read.
So, he talked to her, saw her, and auditioned her. And, he was taken like I was.
And after he told me that I got the role, I was traveling, and I was in LA. And I was like, holy crap, yes, I'm so excited because this is a lead role, and it just sounded really, really cool the way it was described.
So we had our leading lady, and we were ready to go.
Or, we were putting everything together, and we needed a werewolf. And Amanda was like, hey, I know somebody.
I remember Allan was looking for a werewolf, and we were on the hunt for somebody that just could play an awesome werewolf. And, I was thinking about Bryden, who him and I worked on a film previously that wound up not coming to completion, which we're a little upset about. But I loved working with him, and I just knew from talking to him that he is like, I just want to be a creature actor. I want to be a creature actor. He poured so much emotion and thought into the fact that he wanted to be a creature actor. And I was like, Allan, I know a creature actor. Bryden, that's it.
Hi, my name is Bryden DeGennaro, and I play the Beast. I was like away on vacation, I think, because Amanda was like sending me videos and text messages of like a horror movie, and I was like, oh, this is cool, like, sure, like whatever, and she was like, no, she was like, I'm showing you this because the director needs like a creature actor, or like somebody who wants to play the werewolf, because they can't kind of lock anybody down. And I was like, absolutely, like 100%, like this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Like I've been waiting to do a project, especially like this. And, immediately I said yes, because I was like, I definitely want to do this.
So this script, I admit, like, I didn't spend a lot of time on it. I just kind of just did a script like in a night or two.
When I first read the script, I think it was after Amanda had told me about it, and then the director Allan, they sent me all the stuff. I was kind of wowed, to be honest, because I feel like I've seen a lot of werewolf films, especially independent films, some good, some bad. And I think this script really stuck out to me because it was kind of an original idea, and it wasn't really like anything I've ever seen or read before. And I think that was one of the reasons that drew me to it, because it wasn't kind of like every other werewolf or maybe beast type movie that you've seen. And it really felt more of like a horror film. I feel like sometimes some of these other beast creature movies can just kind of dive down other paths, and it just kind of, feels more like a creature feature than like a horror movie type thing. And it focuses more on that. And this script, this story, focuses a lot more on the individual character that Amanda plays. And as much as the Beast is integral to the story, it really just kind of tells her story, and the Beast just kind of happens to be a part of it. And that was one of the reasons I think that, kind of what drew me to the script and what made me want to work on this film.
He sent me the script, and I remember getting it at night, at maybe like 9:00 at night. And I just traveled. I was super jet lagged, but I laid there and I read the entire script from beginning to end. I mean, I didn't even put it down. I was so into the storyline, and I was like, I'm Gail. I'm this character. We have to make this. And from there on, we talked every day just to get this film out there, to make it, whatever we had to do, whatever cast we needed to get, and however we needed each person in the role to be. I mean, it fell into this perfect creation that just wound up happening in such insane conditions. But also, it's an experience I don't think I would ever forget.
So the first time I read the script, it was I was actually sitting on the couch in Allan's apartment reading the script. I'm not even sure how to describe it. It was surreal. Like, holy crap, someone I know wrote a script. What am I doing with this? Why am I here? How am I here? It was fantastic. I just kept turning the pages, reading every word. Like, I'd get to the end of a scene and it'd be like, all right, what happens next? Do I turn the page? Do I keep going? Do I stop? What do I do? It was like imagine you pick up a book for the first time and, you're just going based off of recommendations from other people. You have no idea whether you're going to like this book or not. You're reading through it and all of a sudden it's got you. It's pulled you in and you can't stop. And then by the time I finished, it was like, holy shit.
So Alan sent me the script, and it was good. I liked it. I liked the whole plot. It involved one of my favorite classic movie monsters. So I was all aboard. The one thing I maybe went a little bit off on was actually how much running was involved. The script mentioned running, but didn't show, with add-ons and everything else, on how much we actually were going to be running.
So after they read the script, I was like, you guys do realize you're going to have to run 80% of the film.
What?
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, about that.
But in my mind, I'm like, what the I'm not in shape. I can't do this. I'm going to die out here.
It's funny. Talk about, like, running. I guess one of the first things that Allan did, when he sat there and did a read-through with everybody and just wanted them to know, guys, you better get in shape. The movie is called Run, and that's what you're all going to be doing.
And we ran a lot. But the script was just so well written, and some of the roles, me personally, I've traditionally taken on the role of the stoner or the comic relief, and this was a different pickup for me of where kind of being like almost a leading male and having more serious tones to the role. And I appreciated that Alan's given me a chance to expand my capabilities.
But of course, that brought up another question. Now, we were going to have to film this thing with running, and one of the things, we're not Hollywood. We didn't have camera cars and huge Steadicam rigs with an operator going down. So, how are we going to do this? I mean, we wanted a cinematic look for this. And so we had thought first about, and this was about the time that, especially when Canon came out with their 35 millimeter cameras, digital ones that could take, video on a long way around. The thing was, with the early Canons, they didn't have the things that you were looking for, like shooting in log, which is logarithmic shooting, which is basically a way of shooting very low contrast so you can do color grading later, which was, very important for what we were doing, because most of our shooting was at night, and sometimes we had to shoot things, in the day and make them day for night. So being able to have a wide dynamic range was really important for us. Now, the thing about that is, there were those cinematic cameras out there, like, the Sonys and everything to shoot like that, but they were big, and they were heavy and cumbersome. And it would make it really, rough trying to shoot something handheld with that type of a camera. So fortunately, what ended up happening, what came about was Blackmagic. They came out with the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. And this was bigger than the original the original pocket camera, but it had all the bells and whistles to it. And the beauty part about it, it was small, light, and you could put it on a gimbal. And, for those of you who aren't, technically savvy about that, a gimbal is, a piece of equipment where you can put a camera and balance it. And when you move, you can move it up, down, whatever, but it'll stay solid without shaking. And that was exactly what we needed. So I got the Blackmagic Pocket camera, and We used that to shoot the whole thing. Just about nearly all handheld because, there was a lot of moving going on. And in one scene, as a matter of fact, and it really got to me because me being the cinematographer on this, I was never really good at handheld holding by myself. I have a habit of shaking a little bit. But using that camera, there was one scene that we did in the barn at the farm where I actually had to follow Amanda with the camera, and I did not have the gimbal with me, so I did it handheld, and it worked out great.
So now it's set. The script's locked down. Most of the cast is locked down. Most of the locations were,
We had everything set. I mean, from the actors, locations, even the cars we were going to use, everybody's, schedule was open. And
for those of you who've heard of Murphy's Law, when things, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Well, before we got ready to shoot, when we were just ready to go, Allan had a very serious diverticulitis flare-up. I mean, serious enough to the point that he went into the hospital. And, the cast, myself, everybody, we were worried about him, what would happen.
I had to go to the emergency room. I was having a diverticulitis flare-up and my intestine was perforated. So it was pretty bad.
And, having had a coworker in the past who has gone through the same exact thing, I was like, holy shit. This could be bad for filming.
I think we were all kind of bummed, to say the least. But, obviously an individual's health is more important than this, given the circumstances.
So Allan did come out of the hospital and we got together, as a Facebook group.
And we get a message in our group from Allan saying that he had to have a major surgery.
And he told us the good news was that for the moment he came through it all right. The bad news was that he was going to have surgery. And the surgery had to be imminent in about a month or so.
I know for myself, I of course was nervous. For anybody going into surgery, that's always a big deal. But for all of the momentum that was built up to what was happening up until that moment and finding out that he did need to go to surgery within a month, it got scary.
So here we are all ready together to shoot, and now Allan's going to have surgery with whatever's going to be a long, long recovery. So we had to come to a decision here. Do we wait till this is done, which, for all we know could be 6 months? Or do we push it and go ahead? And to be honest with you, I know I was worried and other people were, if we were to try to push it and go ahead, how is that going to affect Allan's health? I mean, in other words, was it going to make it worse for him?
Who knows how long it's going to take for him to heal? And, it's not. This isn't an appendix. It's a major surgery coming out. So Allan was cool with it, and we were still ready to rock and roll.
Allan knew and felt, if you wait 6 months or so, people have a tendency to drift off. I mean, they have lives, they have other things to do, and I know that this movie really meant a lot to Allan, because he had a lot to prove to himself, he felt.
I promised myself I was going to make this film no matter what. Anything that gets thrown at me, I don't care. Just gonna film it anyway. We're gonna work through it.
It just felt like, all of these people involved energy around it. Everybody was ready to go. And, you know, I knew that we had to do this before he went into surgery. I mean, first of all, the stress, I'm sure, on him, on Allan, wasn't that great, knowing that, like, I really want to get this done, and then I have to go to surgery, and will I be well enough when surgery is over to go back and shoot this? Will everybody be ready? And I'm like, listen, we have to do this. We have to do it now. If there's any way that I could help, you know, the whole experience for you being easier, or just to expedite situations so that we could just really work fluently and get all of this shot right before you go in, I have faith that we could do it. And I think, you know, for me, I was really happy that I did speak up in that moment, because not often do you have a female come in as a lead actress and wind up putting on the hat of an assistant director. So I'm really thankful that Allan and I created that bond, and he did trust me enough to go ahead and help him in every way that I felt like I could in order to get this shot, in order to get this done, especially before something big and heavy was about to happen in his life.
So Allan decided, you know, the hell with it. Let's go forth and do it. So, you know, there was a lot of trepidation involved here with it, but, you know, we respected, you know, his wanting to go ahead and do it. So we crossed our fingers and decided to give it a try. And, you know, we realized that, you know, we're not going to be able to have much of a production schedule because you don't know what's going to happen. So we didn't really, you know, like put anything written down in stone. We just decided, you know, if he could do it, we would all, you know, back him up to do it. And, you know, we would do it how and when we could. So off we were, we went for it.
So I remember our first scene, and the scene is in the bedroom, and it actually takes place at Allan's house. And I, you know, never have been there, and I didn't really know what the scene was. And of course, when you see a scene dressed or a scene set up, you kind of have a little bit more insight to what your character is.
I just remember it was, the room was set up so crazy. So I tried to think of how Scott would have decorated his room and everything.
So I remember walking into the bedroom, and I just saw this like mattress on the floor, all these candles, and a dominatrix doll, like a life-size dominatrix doll. And I was like, ooh, Gail is a little bit more deep than I thought. Or maybe it was Ben. Maybe it was her boyfriend.
So we set it all up real nice with the mattress on the floor. And we had the lighting set up nice. And, you know, out of the walls were decorated with what kind of a, you know, kind of a bohemian couple would have.
But yeah, I just remember getting into doing that scene, laying in the bed, the sheets. I mean, you know, I'm wearing this white dress, and the sheets were white, and it just looked like this really beautiful cascading vampire-esque gown in this, you know, candlelit dungeon room. And I was like, this is amazing.
And then, you know, we called for a break, and, you know, I took Allan aside, and, you know, we played back the scene. And, you know, it was really something. You could kind of like see in his body language of him all of a sudden perking up when he saw that, you know, scene playing forth with Amanda getting up with Ben. And by the time he was done watching it, I mean, he was juiced and ready to go.
Just saw like Allan give a big back smack to Robin, and I was like, okay, this feels amazing. This must look amazing.
I just remember after that first shot, I loved it.
And, you know, seeing him juiced and ready to go, that just got me up too. So we went right ahead. And then we went in, you know, we shot the other scene in his bathroom, which was funny because it's this tiny bathroom, and you got all of us trying to squeeze in there. And you know what? By that point, you know, he hadn't like even worried about it anymore. He was like into it. And you know what? It felt really good. We were on our way.
You ready? Go.
It's funny. One thing about making a low-budget film, and you probably hear like filmmakers, big-name filmmakers like Steven Spielberg that have, like all the money in the world to put out their stuff, and a lot of times when they talk about the past, look back kind of wistfully, they'll talk about, when they had no money, and it was basically just there were people that were doing what you were doing because for the love of what you were doing and to get it done and do the best that you possibly can.
One of the downsides to a no-budget movie where you're working on favors and friendships, and the downside is sometimes people flake through. And in this case, we lost the sound guy.
I remember when we started filming, I think the first shoot, we didn't need sound, but then the next shoot, the sound guy flaked out. So we were like, let's just film it and we'll do the voiceovers in post-production. And then the second time we went to shoot and it happened again. So we're like, well, let's get a different sound guy.
And we were getting out there, and like I said, with the whole idea with Allan having to get this surgery done, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We had to get this done. Because he needed to get this surgery for his health because it was very serious.
So I think, we were on maybe the second day, third day of shooting, and this is like the third time that we didn't have a sound engineer on set. And, we've had people scheduled and either they didn't show up or somebody was sick.
Our sound man couldn't make it. Our boom guy couldn't be there. And it was like, oh God, how are we going to shoot this? I can't run sound and camera at the same time. Allan's got to keep his eyes on the performance and, everything going with that. So, we kind of looked to him like, how do we go about this? What do you want to do?
I remember that night, it was like, should we even film? And I was thinking, we're running out of days we have to film. And I promised myself, no matter what, we're going to film this whole thing. So I know this was probably like a nutty decision. I was starting to get a little crazy. Let's just film it anyway. And I'll figure something out in post.
So, Allan gave it some thought. He goes, look.
Let's film it and we'll just do the ADR for the whole film in post. We have to do this no matter what. Let's do the ADR in post.
We really had no idea how we were going to do that.
I remember Allan saying, it's fine. And I'm just thinking, it's fine. Like, how are we going to go about this? Are they going to hear me? Do I need to speak louder? And he's like, I'm just going to do all of the ADR after.
It's almost 2020, not 1920. So we can't have a silent film.
And for those of you who don't know what ADR means, that stands for automatic dialogue recording. And what that is, you get the actors into a studio, they're watching themselves on the screen, and they're repeating their lines, trying to synchronize it up with what they're doing on the set. And, Allan made the call to do ADR, and, for a lot of the actors, it was, whoa,
So I never did that before. I've done little clips over for a voiceover or something to go over. I've seen that maybe things were muffled or the sound didn't catch over. But to come back and do a whole film brings its own level of uneasiness to it. Because now you're like, what's he doing? And are we going to hit that angle? Are you going to hit that point that you hit with the camera in front of you while we're making eye contact and our hearts are racing from all this damn running. So it's curious of how is this going to get done?
Okay. I mean, Allan's a genius, so I didn't, pick at it like some of the things I did with behind the scenes.
So we filmed every scene without a sound guy, without a microphone, without any audio equipment, just the camera. Because I figured when we're done filming, we'll just get together and do it.
2, 3, that side. Like, make sure I'm like got a good spot on your face. Alright. Action. Or action. Wait. Can't go forward, you can go that way.
Planning to do all of the film's dialogue in post-production, although a risky move, it allowed the cast and crew to not worry about environmental noises interfering with recording the sound for the scene, which helped with a particular style of filmmaking they chose.
So when you're making small movies like this, the best way to get this kind of raw angles that we need would be guerrilla style. And I'm not talking about just regular like a jackass guerrilla style where you're just running. I'm talking about Predator. You're running out there with Old Painful, aka the camera, and you're getting those angles.
Oh, so at first when we got into shooting Run, I wasn't 100% familiar with what exactly guerrilla style shooting was. Like, I've seen people do it, but I didn't know that it had a name. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool.
And exactly what that means is, especially in a lot of places like Los Angeles and New York, in big cities, you have to get permits to be able to film. And, they'll, depending on what you're doing, they may close down streets, divert pedestrians in other ways, you name it. And it costs, it costs a lot of money for these permits, and you're paying a lot of times you have to have a certain amount of cops there, and you're paying their overtime money. And, it's those type of things that make low budget filmmaking really tough. So what guerrilla filmmaking is basically, you're gonna go in there and shoot without any permits, without any permission. You run in there, you take your camera, you get your shots as fast as you can, and you get your ass out of there as quick as possible. And that's basically what we were all about. And when you're doing that type of filmmaking, actors, crew, everybody, there's nobody that's on top of anybody else. If you have lights, cameras, you pick up cameras, props and everything, put them in place, you take your shooting and you go.
Just going places we weren't allowed, and we'd drive to places, hop out of the car, throw on the werewolf mask, run around, fake blood, screaming it was gonna get pretty crazy.
Allan and Robin were out there running alongside with us or riding in the car while we're trucking it down the street in some Timbs. By the way, that was a terrible choice of me to make for sneakers.
So when we were filming, we didn't exactly have permits for everything that we did. So a lot of it was like, all right, we get in, we film, we get the fuck out.
And I just felt like doing that for this film specifically, it was necessary. It had to happen because not only was jumping out of the car, finding this location, okay, shoot, there's nobody here, there's nobody walking, hurry up, get it before a car goes by. That anxiety and that level of trying to get it done as quickly as you can, but as accurately as you can, because, everything is quality versus quantity. Getting those shots done and then just being so quick and accurate with it. I mean, there's this adrenaline running and rushing through you that, by 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, you're running with ease because you're just guerrilla shooting everywhere. lot of the time people were respectful, to be honest. We got outside on a sidewalk. I think we were running outside of a 7-Eleven, and I remember people walking out of the way or going around the shot, like they didn't want to get in their shot or in our shot. I thought that was really cool.
We're running down the side of this street, and it's next to, I believe, a 7-Eleven or something like that. And as we're, running down the road, just after we got done, cutting for the scene, the cops just roll on by, and we're like, holy shit. I'm out here in a trench coat. These people are probably going to think, like, this guy's about to go into the 7-Eleven and rob the damn place. And, it doesn't exactly look good when we have, Amanda, she was... her clothes were, like, all, like, dirty, kind of torn up. And, like, it's really not looking good at all. Thankfully, they didn't stop. They just kind of kept doing their thing. We kept doing our thing. We got back to the car. We got out.
Like, we drive to a location, whether there was people there or not. Usually there wasn't people there because, it was nighttime. We weren't allowed there. We'd get out, shoot, and leave. There was a lot of times, like, we were in the park, and you're not allowed in the park at night. So we'd be there, because it's all lit up. It's, like, really hard to film at night, so you have to go to lit up places. The park's lit up. But while we're filming, like, cops are driving around making sure nobody's in the park. So we'd have to, okay, everybody, let's hide in the bushes. Wait for the cop to drive by. Okay, the werewolf's following you, and you guys are running that way, and action. Okay, cut. There's another cop. Everybody down. We're gonna refilm that. Like, it was insane. One of the parks we went to, there was a parking lot filled with cars, and we didn't know why at first.
There was a huge baseball field next to us, and it was fully packed. And, we're like, oh, there's some kind of party, whatever. I'm over here screaming, help me, run, like, go. And, we're all falling over each other and trying to help each other through. Come to find out that this huge party is a cops retirement party. So I'm glad that they were all partying and drinking and not worrying about us dying and, running away from werewolves. That was interesting.
We're panicking at this point. We don't know what they're gonna do. It's night out. We probably shouldn't be there. It's a park. You're not supposed to be there after night, right? So we slam out these scenes, and we just bailed afterwards. Didn't hang around, no nothing, just gone.
And we were shooting at a school. And we were back there doing stuff, and there are people, you're talking about a residential neighborhood, and there are people sitting there watching you.
There was another scene where we're filming where Amanda is, dealing with a domestic violence scene, and there's little old ladies coming outside wondering why this keeps happening over and over again, and we're just reassuring that we're just filming and getting different angles for the movie. And it wasn't a closed off sets. What you're seeing in the movie is we're actually going into the schoolyard, into a parking lot, and we're running straight through that and trying to bring our own lights and run with the crew to make sure that we can get in and out. And we're only on the bare minimum, a skeleton team. There's a small team of people with special skills, almost like the A-team. And we're going in, we're running, and we're getting out.
I had mentioned before about things going wrong or right. I think it's more just the fact that, like, you just have to do as much as you can, and hopefully it comes out the way you want it to look. And by that, I just mean you film it and act it in every different way you possibly can or think about to make it look the way you want it to look. it was difficult because in the beginning they had wanted me to wear contacts. I don't wear contacts. I've never worn contacts before, so that was a very big issue because part of the transformation scene is the eyes, because it's not a normal human color. So unfortunately, that didn't work, and they had to edit that in post production, which is a whole nother story. And starting out between the barn and like kind of getting outside, it was a lot of work, and just kind of help with the director and the crew, because we all kind of wanted it to look authentic. And again, with seeing other werewolf movies, it's kind of open to interpretation how somebody's body would react to that. And obviously nobody knows really, because to be honest, most of the transformation scenes that I've seen have all been CGI, and it's not really easy to grasp. There's very few that were practical effects. I won't go into that, for random purposes, but most of them have been CGI, and it doesn't really look authentic. It doesn't look realistic. And I think with the practical effects that they'd used, it made it look a little bit more realistic than it would have been if they had done CGI. And just trying to embody that mindset of, you're a human being and your body is changing. And we did so many different takes, so many different versions of like what we thought it was going to look like. And we obviously filmmakers chose the best one that looked more realistic, more authentic to what, we think it would, what would happen if you were to actually change it to a beast. So overall, that whole thing was probably the hardest, because that was a very important part of the story. To understand, where Amanda's character, Gail, kind of, was when she kind of came across this whole thing, and, as the audience trying to figure out, what's going to happen moving forward. So yes, the transformation scene was difficult. I think we pulled it off, but it was hard, and we worked really hard at it. And I think it came out really, really well.
But also what I thought was a fun guerrilla style moment is when I'm running towards the warehouse. I run into the warehouse, but that warehouse is like in the middle of nowhere. It's nothing else about it is in the film. The exterior of it, not the interior, the exterior. So we like went to some random warehouse, pulled up, positioned our cars so that the lights were shining on, me, and shining on the doorway, and we didn't even, have to set up lights. We just used the car lights. And I remember I had to just go randomly into the woods, and they would spray me down with blood, and they're like, okay, run out. And I mean, we did that scene in this warehouse where people were fully working at 1 o'clock in the morning, just me running up to the door and like hitting up against this door. And somebody opened the door and was like, everything okay? Yeah, I mean, guerrilla style, I love it. So when it came to Gail, for me, once I read the script, I instantly started, pinpointing who Gail was. What I like to do with my characters is I almost kind of create this journal for them. So in my mind, you get this short film of just where she is when she wakes up, where she goes on this journey, and where her ending is in a short amount of time. But in my mind as the actress, I have to go in and say, okay, well, how did Gail grow up? Why is she in this abusive relationship? Why does she feel the need, towards the end of the film, she has to do what she has to do? I mean, this all comes from deep-rooted issues as a child, or traumas that, she went through throughout her life that brought her to this point. So for me, it was really about sitting there and just kind of mulling over her history and her lifestyle choices and why she is the way she is in order to perform as this victim hero, this victim who, I guess, I want to say hero, but in her mind, she goes from being a victim to being, the person that could, support herself and be there for herself. And I think that that's really important because in movies like this, I find that the weak need to be saved or the weak don't survive. So how do you go about creating a different outcome? And how is it that Gail has done that? So for me, that was just really getting into her mindset and then finding out exactly who she was.
Yeah, okay, you guys are high.
So it's not true.
Yo, what the hell, man?
You're so fucking stupid!
We just need to catch up on some films. Yeah, whatever, show me the facts.
There's your facts.
One of the funniest things in this was the wolf scene in the van. And I gotta tell you how that came about. The original part where she comes running and the van is parked, all that exterior stuff, we found it's like a building, I don't know, like doctor's offices, like a mini office building kind of place. It was at night, it was a Sunday night, it was an empty parking lot, and we basically shot the exterior stuff there. But you know what? We didn't want to stay there too long. Again, guerrilla filmmaking, because it was private property, and if we stayed there too long making too much noise, even though it was kind of sequestered from things.
I just remember, really, really wanting them to let me in. I was like, please let me in. And no, they had no interest, which, obviously pissed me off.
So, when Allan and I had talked about it before, I thought, you know what? I've got a huge driveway, and it's like blacktop. Why don't we shoot the interior stuff there? Because that's where all the noisy stuff is happening anyway. So they said, okay. So we just pulled this van into my driveway, and I called up my neighbors, and on the one side I said, look guys, if you hear a lot of screaming and blood-curdling yelling, don't call the cops. I promise you we'll only do this till 10 o'clock at night and then we'll stop. So they were really cool about it.
One of the things that I really, really liked about the whole van scene is I remember Allan saying that he really wanted to have the monster, have the werewolf in there as an idea of like Jaws, where you don't really see it until the end. So you get all of these hints of, there's something scary, there's something there, you feel it, you hear it, but you don't see it. So I remember the first time you get that this sight or this depiction of what it could be is when the door opens and you see the three kids in the back of the van kind of terrified, and you have this shadow of, the creature. And I think that gives you that first little Easter egg or that first little thought of like, okay, what is this? And I just remember doing that whole shot. And I think Allan had a cardboard cutout that, kind of looked like the door was being ripped off and pulled out. And I thought that was freaking genius. Like, I was like, wait, this is a really good idea what you could do with a piece of cardboard to make it look like we're pulling a door off. Like, that's pretty cool.
I hesitate to think people driving by what they must have thought was going on. But, it really looked great. And you'd never tell when you watch the film that was two different areas and, somebody's driveway. But that was a fun night.
I'm gonna have to split up.
No.
Look, there's a much better way for surviving, at least one of us, if we split up.
No, I don't want to die alone. What?
100 million to 1. You once faced 100 million other sperm to your mother's egg, and you won. Now, that might sound like some stupid shit right now. That's what kept me on the straight and narrow. That's how I survived.
You know, the thing about, again, I guess we've been talking about this a lot. And, you know, I've been talking about, like, you know, all of the technical things we've had, the problems with this. But, you know, one of the things about it is we've really had a great cast. And, like, Nick, Amanda, and Ben inside of this was great. And, you know, you can really sort of see it in the scene at the school on the swing. That was interesting because even for, you know, like, I knew this had to be good for Allan, and, you know, even for myself, it was a chance where we could actually use a tripod and slow everything down. So, you know, Allan could really concentrate on working with the actors and their performances as opposed to worrying about all the technical stuff that goes along with it.
Yeah, when we were filming at the school, now you gotta imagine, you're not allowed on school property at night, for one thing. And, you know, there's residential houses all around this place. So we were there with our camera and our lights, creating a lot of attention. People in the houses all around would come out and they were, like, watching us. Nick and Amanda on the swings had to talk, like, you know, they're getting tired of this werewolf chasing them, and they're probably smarter to end their lives and swallow a bottle of pills. It's originally how the scene went. So yeah, we had to film it there, and I remember thinking, like, it's probably only a matter of time till those people really get so confused at what we're doing that they're going to call the cops. So it's like you got to just push that out of your head and focus, and just be like, all right. And that's what I give Amanda and Nick a lot of credit, because, like, I mean, Nick's scene, like, he was amazing. He really delivered that monologue, like, perfect, being stared at by, like, all these people.
I remember that day it was really nice out. It was very hot, and that was a day that Nick, myself, and Allan ran a lot. I think even it just, like, rained or something, misted the night before, so the grass was wet, and Nick and I slipped, like, several times. We had to help each other up, so that was intense. And I just remember that day specifically, Nick and I had a really good moment together where we were just so focused on getting these characters to have a very vulnerable moment. And, you know, we were running around the school. People were coming out and watching us and, you know, looking out their windows, and some were sitting on their porches. But by the time we got to the swing set, I just remember, you know, we were sitting on that swing set for, you know, quite some time, and sitting there in silence with one another. It was really powerful. And I think it helped us drop down into going on with Nick's monologue, which I love that monologue. I think it is just so heavy but accurate at the same time. It's something that you don't think of, and, like, a random thought that would come to somebody's mind, but just stated so clearly. And it also helps, you know, push the rest of the film, because you get this powerful speech from Nick, and he just really, you know, is like, you just have to be the strongest. And I felt like that was really the motivational kicker to everything.
You know, it's a difficult scene to do, especially for Nick, you know, portraying, you know, like, for any actor, portraying, you know, a lot of emotion with something that, you know, may have gone on in your in the character's life that hasn't happened in yours. And like with Amanda too, going to the part and his reaction to her, subtly suggesting, suicide. I mean, they really, really did a great job. Not only their talent, but I give Allan a lot of credit too for helping to guide them in the right direction. And and then the same thing later on with Nick. I'm sorry, later on with Ben, when he drives up and he and Amanda are in the car and they're, talking, she's begging him to, you gotta get us out of here and everything and leave. And, like Ben is like pretty amazing. And, he throws some ad libs in there as the guy that just, almost cracked us up on the set. I mean, let's put it this way. Up to this part, we were so concentrated on, what we were doing technically with camera work that, this particular part of the film, this area of filming really gave us a chance to sit down and really, like see the performances as they were happening and, really gave us the, impetus and the idea that, what, we did a pretty damn good job at casting this thing. Because these people are pretty good, and they're going to make this movie.
That whole scene, I mean, working with Ben, who plays Scott, was just a very interesting, funny moments because he was very off the cuff a lot of the times. And getting into the car and having him, scream at me and kind of punch me out of the car, that was, coming from this vulnerable moment with Ben, with Nick, and then going into this other, opposite kind of vulnerable moment with Scott, who is Ben as well, just had me in a very interesting emotional state that by the time I was my own stunt person and I was throwing myself out of the car. So every time Scott would punch me and I would fall out of the car, I mean, I was throwing myself out of that car. And I feel with all the emotion I was going through, I was just ready. I was like, yes. So that was, the scene, the school scene. I know that, for me, it was just a lot of ebb and flow between my emotions and where I was coming from between Nick just being very sentimental and then Ben Scott being very rough and rugged, and then me having to be this victim in between it all. So emotionally, it was a beautiful piece to play.
It's funny, something else, about casting is, when Allan was writing the, and having written myself, and when Allan was writing the script, I mean, sometimes you're thinking of characters and you have, you think about people, picture people that are in your own life as these characters. And I know, like, Mike Heaton, who, Allan's friend and a friend of my son, I mean, I don't know, there was something about Mike that just kind of inspired this character in Allan. So, Allan wrote the character with him in mind. And, Mike had never acted before, but I don't think Allan ever considered anybody else but Mike for the part. So, I wasn't really privy to everything that was happening. I don't know if he had to really talk him into this and convince him to do it. But, Mike did come in, and it just goes to show you, like, I guess Allan wrote to all the strengths that Mike has as a person, and it came through in the character. And, really, he did a tremendous job. And that even comes from other people in the cast, like, because even Amanda had mentioned, like, it was so easy to feel maternal towards him because of the way he was acting. So, it just goes to show you, if you have the right person for the right role and have it in mind, you can really make some magic.
So it was actually pretty intimidating on set for me at first. These people who I'm working with have acted in stuff before in the past. me personally, first time doing it. I'm thinking, oh shit, I'm gonna fuck up, like, and they're gonna get mad. What am I gonna do? But they were super chill, very nice. Uh, hell, they gave me so much advice while we were doing it. Like, it was amazing. You know, they always say, like actors are assholes, but I don't believe that.
This guy he was not an actor. He never acted before, never even wanted to act, never thought of acting. But from the first time we were filming him, we said action, he was just like on point. Like he knew the role, he knew the character, and he did it so good. It was amazing. Perfect.
Yeah, I think a lot of people look and wonder about, how do you guys get a police car and get all this done? I think the story, a good one about that. Actually, Justin, the actor that played the policeman, I mean, he had a nice car. It wasn't a police car, but, it was a nice car. And, like there's a scene where he drives up to the place to, where there's a police report, a girl calls up, and, he's going to investigate. So, how we're filming this, we ended up getting, like, something like a police light that gave you, like the red and blue flashing signal, which was all nice. But, Allan wanted a shot from inside of the car as they were on their way. So, what ended up happening, how do we make this look like a police car inside? It doesn't have the stuff. So, Allan, I came up with an idea. I think this was absolutely brilliant. What ended up happening was he had dinner with his sister, and she had like kind of a sheet rack, a cookie sheet rack that had like a grating in it. So what we did was, both him and I, I'm not exactly skinny, and Allan, who looks great now, lost weight, but he was a little plump at the time too. We're squeezing ourselves into the back of this car. I've got the camera shooting at like Justin, and Allan is underneath me holding up this rack in front of the camera so it kind of looks like the cage in the back of the police car. And it was amazing. It looked great. And to this day, people are still asking us, how'd you guys get a police car? You know what? It's unbelievable what a little bit of ingenuity can do for you.
One of the issues that we had to run into while filming this movie was that this happens over the course of one night. So while you're having this night movie with no budget, you're having to use the lights that you have, and that comes with a whole plethora of its own issues.
The schedule of that film, like I said earlier, it was really, really tight, and it wasn't the matter, could we or should we? We had to. So there were certain scenes, and people have different schedules. I mean, they have to work, they have to do things. So for some of the scenes in the movie, I mean, the whole thing takes place at night. But, some of the cast members, integral cast members, were not available on a certain night where we had to go. And because, again, our schedule was so tight, we had to do it. So we had to get together, and we had to shoot those scenes in the daytime.
So a majority of filming, I mean, sometimes I was getting to set at like 9 o'clock at night, and we weren't wrapping until almost 3 o'clock in the morning. And I lived about an hour away. But it made sense because everything was at night. It was pitch black, and we had like maybe 1 or 2 lights just showing certain areas. So I mean, it all made sense to me. And at one point, we were getting really close to Allan having to go get his surgery. So he was like, we're just gonna have to do this during the day. And I'm like, what? How are we gonna do this during the day? I mean, how is that gonna be consistent?
Now, I know probably a lot of you have heard of people shooting, day for night, where they shoot in the daytime and make it look like night, which was, we were kind of like, yeah, we'll just shoot and do day for night. But, none of us had actually done day for night in the post before. in post before, and it was like, you know, we were telling ourselves, patting ourselves on the back, saying, yeah, we're going to do this, all the while really wondering how and if we would be able to do this. But once again, you know what? Your back's against the wall. So we just had to like put it out there and hope for the best.
Because of all the scheduling conflicts, and you know, the surgery was coming, we were running out of time. There was just, you know, too many scenes to film, so the only logical solution that I came up with was we're gonna have to film some things during the day.
Why the hell are we filming during the day? It's supposed to be a movie that's shot at night, right? Has he lost his fucking mind?
There's several scenes, and I think the scenes go in and out of the order of, you know, whether we were at night and whether we were during the day, but the way that everything was edited and the way that everything was color graded and just the way Allan worked his magic, I mean, you couldn't really tell what was night, what was day. It just blended together in this really dusky kind of, you know, eerie night. So that was really interesting and cool.
So, again, like I said earlier in this thing, Allan has like a wide range of friends, and I mean, you know, they're all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of, you know, jobs, all kinds of everything. So anyway, Allan had just put on Facebook in hopes of maybe, you know, we were looking for a big open space to shoot that's like a park. And, you know, had wondered if anybody had anything available and would like allow us to shoot there.
You know, all this stuff that was getting thrown at us, like, we got lucky. I had posted on social media that we needed a place to film, and one of my close friends, he said, you know, hey, I work on a horse farm that's like 1 million acres. You could film anywhere on the farm. Okay.
It just so happens that one of his friends, and I don't know if he had seen her in a while or not, but she saw that. And she happened to work on a horse farm that was out on your way to South Jersey. And, you know, so Allan told us about the place and we could, like, shoot there. And I'm thinking, oh, a horse farm? Well, yeah, okay. So, you know, we'll get a little place and maybe some horses. So, you know, Allan goes, yeah, you know, we'll go out and take a look at it. Well, we drive out to this place. We're not talking about a little horse farm. This is a farm where very wealthy people basically, you know, they board race horses. The place was absolutely huge and it was gorgeous. There were at least 3 barns on the place. And when I say barns, I'm not talking about like some red brick barn. I'm talking about with horse stalls that were beautiful, that were heated, that, you know, just absolutely amazing. And there was like an office in there. And, you know, this friend of Allan's got the woman who owned this place, just gave us carte blanche to the place. I mean, not only did we have this place to film a lot of the scenes, we had an office where we could film like the police scene. We had, on the property was an old broken down house that we could use as a house. You know, it was just absolutely amazing. So all I can say is that after, you know, all the stuff that fate had thrown at us, I guess it decided, you know, I'm going to give these people a break. And, you know, thank God to Allan and his diversification of friendships, because, you know, this was beautiful and probably one of, you know, the most amazing things that actually really did save this film and made it special.
The place is very beautiful, very grateful. Like, they made the movie. Like, it was, I'm so thankful and grateful for that.
So by this point now, you know, things are like looking really, really good. I mean, I don't know how, but, you know, somehow, you know, like we're on schedule we're getting everything shot and everything done. My God, we had like luck with the park and everything. Things are, like looking really good. We're getting done, Allan's gonna go into the hospital, and he's been good up to now, and he's gonna have his surgery done, and we'll wait for a while, and even like while he's recuperating, we can do the ADR. We'll figure that out, and and by the time we have that done, we should be able to do whatever reshoots that we still needed to get done, and we're feeling pretty darn good about what happened. And then COVID. All of a sudden, Allan gets out of the hospital, and next thing you know, COVID-19 hits, and everybody's on lockdown.
It's like at first I was like, okay, I'm gonna film this no matter what. Okay, so the hospital thing comes my way, I get it. Something's trying to stop me from filming this, and we have to film it with no sound, and we have to film it during the day, like whatever, like we'll get through it. Okay, so now we're on lockdown. You're not allowed to go out past curfew.
Yeah, nobody was expecting to just stay inside and get nothing done, and it was really upsetting, really frustrating, and it just put a wrench in our creative drive. We were on a high. I mean, we were running up this hill. We were at the top. We were, we had so many plans for this film, and it's like everything stopped. Everything halted, and everybody took their frustration out on Allan.
So, like, how are we supposed to do the ADR? Like, how is this going to be done? So, alright. I have to recover from surgery anyway. Let's wait, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year. Like, how long is this gonna go on? And then, everyone's anxious to see the film, and it's like a lot of the actors didn't understand why the film wasn't getting done, and I'm like, because your mouths are moving, but there's nothing coming out.
It's like, is this fate throwing, like the last thing in our way? I mean, we've got reshoots we've got to do. We're trying to get this ADR done, and we can't even get together in the same room because of COVID, and God knows how long this is going to be. I mean, nothing like this. I've never lived through any kind of a pandemic. I mean, for all we know, we could be like locked down for a year. So, I got to tell you, it was a really scary time, It was scary, for people's health, we're scared, for Allan. I mean, he's recovering already from the hospital, from having the surgery, and now this. I mean, is that going to affect something there? And, and it had to be, like, really tough for him because, he put his heart into this movie and getting this thing done. And, the thought of this damn pandemic and everything, putting the kibosh on all the work and all the effort that, everybody had put into this, it was really hard. And I think it was especially hard on Allan.
COVID. So, we've never had anything like this happen before. It's bizarre, the fact that we were locked in our homes for close to 2 years. And not to mention, as soon as this whole thing started, Allan had just gotten done with surgery. We didn't know how anything was going to go from there,
Yeah, with COVID, it was an uneasy time for everybody. Nobody really knows what's going on, and nobody can go see each other. One thing that you definitely couldn't do is go over to someone who, like in Allan's case, had his guts rearranged in a non-fun way, and he couldn't be around us. He couldn't be exposed to germs. So that left us with, what are we going to do? And pretty sure as the whole world seen that last those 2 years, it was a lot of waiting. And in this case with Run, we waited a long time. We'd hear nothing.
So that was a huge hit because Allan, the director, was super close to being done with the film. At least probably like a rough cut for the most part. And yeah, I honestly think for a moment there, and when I mean a moment, I mean a long time again. I don't think they knew what to do. I think they were stumped. I think they thought it was a waste, that this was something they shot that was never going to get finished again, which is definitely something that I think happens too often to independent filmmakers when they're trying to get their stuff out there. And I think they were pretty much ready to give up, to be honest.
Yeah, I tell you, those months were like unbelievable. You just have to, like, I don't know, you just have to imagine, like, for any kind of a project, and, especially this project, this film for us, which was going to be the jumping off point for everything else, and, we had put so much into it, and, the months are ticking by, and it was like we had no idea, what was going to happen. I mean, in order to get this thing out, we had to do ADR. We had scenes there with, like, no dialogue to them, like a freaking silent movie, and, we had to do the ADR. Yet, we couldn't be in the same room with one another because of COVID. We had, like, reshoots of things that we wanted to do, and now with COVID and everything else, we didn't have access to those locations to even do those reshoots. And, so we're sitting there, and Allan is sitting there with this pile of footage. And, unless we were able to make some of this happen, this wasn't even going to be releasable. How the hell were we going to get this done? We're going to, like, endanger each other with COVID to go ahead and do this anyway? For me, it got to the point where I thought, this isn't even going to be possible. All this, and wow. And it ends up on a hard drive somewhere. Unbelievable. It was heartbreaking.
So it's like, I'm guessing this pandemic's never going to end. So my only option is now to see what I could do. So I'm editing the movie together and everything. There was sound on it, though. I wasn't thinking about we filmed it all with a Blackmagic Mini, and that has a little microphone in it, and we weren't paying attention to that at all when we were filming. Like, thank God we had it on. Like, it just wasn't something thought about, because you wouldn't really want to normally use that microphone for your dialogue for your movie. And I tried to edit it with using that. It's just so thin and flat, and like, we didn't mind about noise when we were filming. Like, there's a lot of scenes, there's a truck idling like right next to where we're filming. Not only was it bad to begin with, but it was covered in noise, so it's like, this is unusable. But like, I didn't want anything to stop me, so I was like, let me screw around with this and see if I can salvage it at all. So I remember screwing with the dialogue so much. Like, I had to layer so many voices on top of each other just to make it sound thick, just to make it sound like real, like, it's not being screwed with, just thicker though, so it sounded like something. Like, I know there's like 2 scenes with Nick when he's talking, and like there's noises on certain words I just couldn't fix because of how I had to, you know, make the sound bolder and everything. It just wasn't working. So like I had to actually like cut out certain parts of the words he's saying and I'm saying them. You know, it's like there's a lot of parts like that. But at least, you know, it was taking forever for each line, but it was working. It was becoming something even vaguely acceptable. I did that for the whole movie. It took forever. I was working on the film. I remember I was literally working like 8 to 10 hours every single day for like 3 months or 4 months. Like I didn't talk to anybody. I woke up. I remember I woke up. I would go for a walk. I'd come back and I just work on the whole damn thing. Between editing it and then trying to, like, a lot of that to make it look like nighttime. Like it might not look great, but I mean, from what I had to work with, like I think you know, it got good enough. So I did this, you know, I did this soundtrack. I was getting it all together. And then I got the opening scene, the van scene done. So now I was laying low because, you know, I know everybody was getting like very, like I know people didn't understand like what I was working with. Like it was just a bunch of unworkable pieces. So I kind of went into hiding and, you know, lived like a hermit while I worked on it. And then I got the van scene done, and I was pretty happy with it. So that's when I just reached out to people, and I was like, I got the first scene done.
And then, out of nowhere, Allan sends in the group a small clip of the van scene. And he said, this is what I've been working on. Sorry we couldn't get through to the AVRs, but he found a way to work with what we got. And once he just did his magic, I don't know what he was doing, limping around in that house during those long, quiet COVID months, but we were starting to see a finished project.
They made it work, and they got this done.
Yeah, and then we got the opening scene, and I was elated. I was so excited. I couldn't believe that it was happening. It was still happening, and yeah, that definitely put a smile to my face.
Holy shit. I was like, I know these people, and you know, most of the people in the scene have never acted before. They're fucking good. Like, wow. And the camera work, loved it. Just, wow.
Because we got a movie here. We got a werewolf film. It's got everything going into it. I'm proud to have been a part of this, and you know what? Ask me, I'd do it again.
We were seeing that this thing that we put everything into within a month actually coming to fruition. It's actually not just an idea and little bits and pieces that we were involved with, but now you're starting to see a bigger picture. And it was an exciting time. It was good. It brought life back into it. It was no longer this guessing game of what's going to happen. Like it's happening. It's now.
Yeah, it felt great. Loved every second of it.
So yeah, I finished the film and I loved it on one hand, but the other, like I have edited it every day for the past like I don't know how many months. Like I was sick of it. I couldn't watch it, but you know.
And I guess what was the icing on the cake for the whole thing was that, you know, we had this movie And now we're trying to decide, what do we want to do? I mean, there are a lot of people that go out there, they'll take a movie like this, and you can see it a lot of times if you go on YouTube, you'll see, people have made short films, and they just put them on there for people to see, and I don't know, I kind of felt, Alan and everybody felt, we had something that was actually that we thought was, like saleable. Something that was, like really good, that people would recognize and go to see. So we thought about a bunch of things, so we decided, what the heck, let's submit it to Amazon and, let's see if we're right about this. And so, we talked about it, we looked up what you have to do, and then Allan went ahead and submitted it. And, we did for a while, we didn't hear anything, so well, I'm sure probably a lot of people do, who goes, and, then Allan called me up, and I could kind of like hear the smile in his voice, and he goes, Robin, they took it, we're on. And I'm like, yes! That's it, we got it on Amazon. So, the thing is, we've come full circle. We've gone from an idea to getting together a script, to assembling a cast, to actually going out there and doing it, facing all the crap that fate's thrown at us, and still coming out of the back end, finishing it, and then Amazon takes it and we have it out there to the public. So yeah, I tell you, it just felt amazing. It was a great experience, and you know what? No matter what happens in the future, I don't think there'll be another one like it. And this is something that will always remain in my memory fondly.
So where do we go from there? Like, how do you go from something small and just an idea to now it's walking, it's running, it's grown, it's becoming this, it's at the block. It's just starting to become this entity. And I was speaking to Allan, and he's telling us that he was showing me little clips for upcoming video game. Yes, like as a child of the '80s, and one of the Nintendo kids, the original, the Power Glove kind of era. Don't call me millennial, call me Nintendo kid. Come on. And I grew up with 8-bit video games, and to see myself and my character in this, like, mind blowing. I never thought I would be here where I can plug a game in, and I found a brand new way to play with myself.
So with Run, I'm really excited to see, where everything goes. I know that right now we are planning to hit some horror conventions in the tri-state area. So that is going to be super fun for whoever wants to come and meet the cast and crew and just talk more about the process of making the film. Also, there's a video game coming out, and it is so cool. You get to play as my character Gail, so or you have a selection of possibly unlocking other people, and it's just such a cool game. I got to see it, and I'm really excited for that to come out.
And then we were sharing the link, and we were sending people, telling them where to go watch it, and getting the feedback from our friends, our family, and sometimes even just from other people who happened to catch along and just wanted to reach out and say, yeah, I was feeling this, I was liking it. And it was such a good feeling. It was so, for something that we crushed to put out, and then here's this ending product, and it's not just us that loves it, us and our mamas that love it. Like, this is the people who are loving this. And it's great.
So, this thing's finally out here. It's happened. Wow. Occasionally, people come up to me and they're like, hey, I loved you in that thing. And it's like, who the f*** are you? I don't know you. And then it clicks. I was in a f***ing movie. Never thought that would happen. But yeah, the responses have been overwhelmingly positive. It's fantastic. I love it. And I'm glad for everyone who was involved. Allan especially, this is it's fucking cool.
Once you watch this film, you will realize it was worth the wait.
You understand how well put together it was, and how there was so much feeling and emotion in this movie, especially from Amanda, on how it really, it's hard to explain. You got to see it to understand it.
It turned out great. I truly hope people can comprehend, just the level of stuff that has gone into this. It was amazing.
I honestly, I did not even expect the amount of feedback that we're getting. I have people messaging me just on social media, like, are you that girl from the werewolf movie? And I'm like, yeah, who are you? And it's just so cool that this film is getting out there to the point where people are loving it and finding, the cast and crew and letting them know that they love it. I think that that's really, really special. And if you could touch somebody through a film and just have them feel something to the point where they either want to write a review, they want to reach out to you directly, they want to talk to a friend about it, then you've done your job in cinema. That's how, I see it.
And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I did. The ups, the downs. It feels good to witness someone you care about never giving up, despite the odds. It can bring a warm feeling to your heart. Thanks for watching. All good things must come to an end. And speaking of endings, Allan would like to share a few words on the ending for Run.
The ending was supposed to be different. The ending was supposed to be Gail goes into the building and she finds a baseball bat next to other sports stuff, and then there's trophies, and a first place gold trophy, and there was supposed to be a second place trophy that's usually silver, and it was supposed to be a star, and she was supposed to pick the trophy up and use duct tape and tape it to the baseball bat. And then when she fought the werewolf, that's what she hit him with. Just it was a different way to hit him with silver. And there was some miscommunication with the props or whatever, and there wasn't too many problems. There wasn't any problems really with the props at all through the movie. This was the one time, and so we didn't have the trophy. So here we are, last day of filming. It was me, Amanda, and Bryden in the studio. We didn't have the second place trophy. So we're all right, we got the studio for a couple hours. Let's rework this. We could use anything in here. What does she do? And I knew, the whole point of this for me was, it was about, this girl who, in her life, she was abused. She was usually on the receiving end of other people's aggressions, and that's sort of the werewolf was almost like a metaphor. She couldn't stand up to her abusive boyfriend, and she runs away from him, but it's her problems didn't leave her, and the werewolf was there, and the whole time she's running from it. And it's kind of she's starting to understand she's either going to keep running the rest of her life, or she's going to turn around and stand up for herself.
Spoilers.
So I was at my wit's end. With everything that happened, it's our last day of filming. Like, there's like nobody there but us three. And for me, I was just like, all right, Amanda, I want you to take this baseball bat and I want you to beat the ever-living shit out of this werewolf. And she did it. So that was awesome. But now, here we are, like months later, and I'm editing it, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. How is anybody gonna just grab a baseball bat and beat a werewolf? Like, this is, like, I respect werewolves. Like, you know, and I'm like, I wouldn't enjoy this. Like, I get it, the girl's, like, pissed off, she's, you know, but it's still, like, you know, I like the idea, but, like, no, not gonna work. So, we're on lockdown. I have to, you know, I don't have the same camera of the actors. How am I gonna fix this ending trapped in my apartment, literally? So it took me about like a week or two. Then I was like, you know what? If I edit in like a shot of the sun rising, like if the sun's rising, then you know he's starting to transform back. He's going to be weaker and distracted, and don't hate me for that ending. But no, like he, you know, I think it can work. In the realm of everything that can happen to a werewolf, just fucking buy it and just watch it. Just enjoy it. Okay?
You know, the interesting thing about this was that Allan, you know, had, you know, composed the soundtrack on it. And, you know, when he said he was doing it, you know, Allan and I have known each other for a long time, you know, like years, we talked about movies and everything, but we never kind of like really, you know, talked about music, and, you know, and I never really knew that part of him, you know. I knew that he played guitar, and, you know, I knew that he was, like, interested in music and liked it a lot. But I, you know, like, I didn't really know. So when he said he was writing, you know, composing the soundtrack, I'm thinking, oh, you know, do you really want to do that? We could probably find somebody else. But, you know, no, he went ahead and, you know, he said, no, he's got it. You know, we're taking care of it. So, you know, I was waiting to see what was going to happen. And, you know, and I watched the movie, and I was, like, so blown away by the whole thing, and then it kind of hit me. Holy crap. He did the soundtrack. You know, it was so good that I didn't even, when I was watching it, I didn't even make the connection was, you know, this is the soundtrack that I was, like, worried about whether it could get done. And it was, like, really great. And it was funny, so at the same time, I also got to know a whole different aspect of my friend, the musical part of it, you know, which, you know, we've been friends for a long time, but that was a side of him I didn't even know. So, you know, it kind of got me on two things. I got to know something about somebody that I know that I'm friends with, and to know about a talent that I didn't know he had. And, you know, I got to see, like, something that even elevated the movie we made even further. So, yeah, that was really cool.
And that's all, folks. Thanks for watching.